month's update. Thank you for the comments on the last video about length of time. I'm going to try and keep these to about 20 minutes, so no more than 20 minutes. This update sort of changed in the process of making it. It started out, as you'll see, with me showing you some work that I had to do to put a decent bus wiring, essentially, to allow all the lighting to be done properly, which did give me an opportunity to show you the station in a bit more detail in situ, which I've not done for quite a while. I then encountered a problem, as one always does, when one fiddles with electrics in the church, which required some radical surgery. And at the end, my intention was to complete the work on the church by putting gravestones in place and trees. But I didn't do that for a reason which I'll explain when you come back at the end of the video. But that did allow me to do something else, which I have recorded separately, and I'll talk about that again at the end of the video. So enjoy the next part of the video, and I'll talk to you again at the end. As I mentioned in the start, I finally got round to doing the wiring loom. One of the wires on the lamp that was at the end here came off, and it was telling me that it was time to wire them in properly because it was a complete rat's nest underneath. And as I put lights in, I'd done it as a bit of a lash up, really. So what I'll do in a moment is go underneath to show you how I've put my lighting loom in, which I hope to be able to use for all future lights. I'll also take the opportunity, whilst everything is off the baseboard, to give you a closer look at the station, which you may have had some look at it when it was being built some videos ago, but until I get a train cam at N gauge, you won't get to see it much without things in front of it. So first of all, the lighting. These lights I bought at Model Rail Scotland. They're exactly the same design except they're LEDs, and they already give, I think, a much better glow. The others were very, very bright. These are not so bright and give a really nice glow over the running inboard at each end, and a much nicer yellower light than the incandescent bulbs that I had before. So, time to get down and under the baseboard. If you hear any groaning over the next few minutes, that is me, or my joints, because I've been going under the baseboard quite a bit over the last few days. So, here we go. Now, I'm hoping that there is enough light from my lamp to show you what it is that I've done. It included one thing which turned out to be wholly unnecessary, because I also bought at Model Rail Scotland a dimmer switch for the LEDs, which didn't work. But I'll show you how I wired this. So some of the LEDs could be put through the dimmer switch, and that was to try and quieten down the lights on the station platform because they were so bright they were drowning out other lights. But actually, having seen them now, I probably don't need a dimmer switch. But I'm wired for a dimmer switch if I ever want to get one. So here we go. This here is the plug coming up from the adapter, which plugs into to a little plug from which comes the positive and negative feeds. And what I've then done, essentially, if I move these ones out of the way, whichever points, I think there you can see a chop block. And the red wire coming in is coming up from that switch, and then I've put chop blocks at regular intervals. There's 4 because, let me come round a bit further so you can see a bit better. It's quite hard with all this stuff in the way. There you go, there's 4. On this first one, the power comes in and then carries straight on, and then I've jumped these down to here, so that if I want to take power back to the other end of the layout at any point, I can do that a bit later on. At the moment, there's no need for lights down that end, so I'm not adding the loom there, but it gives me the option. And then the cables, which I've intertwined, because there's so many red and yellow cables, but the intertwined ones are for the wiring. then run round the perimeter of this baseboard. I'll take you down a bit further. Quick view of the bin. And that comes down, oops, sorry about that. That comes down to there. And this one, this is quite a good one because this has got the lights to the church coming into it. What I've done, again, the power comes into the top and then just carries straight on. And it's jumped down to this one, and that's the one that the lights are fitted into. It's easy to get 3 or 4 sets of lights into one terminal there because the wires are so thin, but I don't think I'll need to. And the cable you can see going in there is the cable for the church. And then we continue round in just the same way to here, and that's exactly the same idea. And the wires on the bottom 2 here, which you can see the brown and blue wire going in, is the lights to the Greyhaven station. Then I wired in this little lot of beauties, which was meant to be for the dimmer switch. I want to see if I can explain this to you whilst crouching under a board. Here we go. Right, at the far end here is where the power comes in from the previous chop block and then goes back out to a final chop block that's right on the other end of this baseboard, this central baseboard. It then goes across, excuse me, into here, and the power then originally was going off all the way back to the to where my gauge master power thing is. So, which is where I was going to have the dimmer switch, and then it came back from the dimmer switch with the red and yellow cable, so I could tell that that was the returning power. And then I put so many chop blocks here because I expect to put quite a few more lights in and around both the station and, of course, Longbottom Terrace and Bagshot Terrace. So that's all sitting there waiting. But as it turns out, the LEDs are fine. I'm probably not going to need a dimmer switch. But if I ever do, I'm wired so that these would take the power from the dimmer switch to allow me to dim the lights if they were too bright for me. So that's, oh, excuse me, let me just come out before I bang my head. That's how I've wired the loom here. If you'll excuse me a moment as we take another tour up and above board. Oh, that's better. Oh, that's a damn long way down when you're 6'4". Now this is the station, which you've heard me speak about many times. Let me see if I can get a good view of what you're seeing. There we go. This being an island platform, that's the way in which people get up. And one of the things I'll be able to do is show you the other side of the main building, because you've only ever seen the back of it. And you come in under the first 4 bays of this canopy until we reach, I think that's the station master's hut, I can't quite remember now. And then you've got the refreshment room, and there are doors on both sides into the refreshment room. And then here is where the ramp comes up from the bay platform, which you'll see in just a moment when I show you that platform. Moving on to what will be the parcels office. Now that's one of the ones I do want to light at some point. And then I think we go to the gents and the ladies. And on the rear, I mean, you'll have to wait to see the other side when I do finally get a train cam, which I'm looking to find out how I can probably make one from a spy pen, apparently. That will be fun. And then finally down here you have the waiting room, and again I'm hoping to light the waiting room at some point. Oh, you've run a bit, there we are. Oh no, even worse. To light the waiting room at some point and then be able to put chairs and things in it, so you can, and people, of course, hurrah. And then we come to the end of the platform there. Just to give you a quick look of the other side of what is platform 1, the bit that you don't normally see. Well, you come in through here. That's the entrance. and down here is the steps going down that come up on the platform. And then there are various buildings, waiting rooms. Down there, behind there is a loading bay where they can load newspapers and things. And then coming down to this end, where you have the parcels area with the ramp that comes up, and there's a gents there, as you can see, tucked away quite discreetly. And then down here we have the fencing around the ramp that goes down to allow parcels to move down onto the middle platform. And then some homemade little steps. Again, used by the very simple method of just different lengths of card building a set of steps. So whilst I had the station out, I thought I'd show you that as well, whilst if you're not completely seasick from having been taken under the baseboard. And I'll come back to carry on with the video in a moment. Well, as you can see by the church sitting on my workbench, or my desk, rather than being on the layout, all is not well at St Eldar. When I turned the lights on today, having done the wiring loom, which you've already seen, lo and behold, the LED was flickering away inside St Eldar. I was hoping it was at a loose joint at some point, and I cut off the resistor and resoldered that and resoldered various things, but no, it kept flickering away. And the only thing was to lift the church, which was well stuck down, to replace the LED, which is what I'm currently doing. But whilst I've got it off the layout, I thought what I would do is show you how I wired the inside, because my hope is to put this all back together, probably not this evening, but have it all back up by the time the video actually goes out. I mentioned that I made a lampshade for the LED to sit in. These are the LEDs that I got from Kite's Lights. And essentially, if I can get this to work, the light goes through there, that one goes through there, and sits inside the lampshade. I won't try and fit it all in, otherwise we'll be here all day. So that sits in there with the two wires coming out, and that sits right in the centre here, and then the wire runs along down one of the legs and down through the board. The lampshade really is nothing more than quite thick card. I would say that's 1mm card. Not obviously very thick, but quite thick, which is simply, you sort of take a square and then make 4 flaps, but these 2 flaps, if you can see in there, let's see if I'm showing you, have tabs on them. So that's cut exactly to that size. These 2 have 2 tabs, so that when you score along these edges and fold down, those 2 tabs go inside, and lo and behold, you have a lampshade. The other thing I did, which I'm just in the process of doing, which I'll finish in a minute, again to try and stop light leaking through the card, was to fit some foil around the card, and that's just what I'm in the process of doing at the moment, before I feed the cable through, because that's also got to go through the foil. But that is just a short section, just to show you how I made the lampshade and how I fitted it into the top here. So I've got to redo all that, which I'll now get on and do, and see the other side. Which I'll also show you when this is back on the layout. I took the opportunity, having got this off the layout, to give another layer of 2mm spring grass into the churchyard. So it's now looking quite verdant, mainly because as I got this off I did scrape it in places, and there were some bare patches which I'd always wanted to cover. So all is not lost. The churchyard has been returfed, and this will have new lights. So I'll see you again in a minute. Well, here we are, next day. As you can see, the church is back in place, lights replaced, bushes returned, and ready now for the next stage up here, which is going to be putting on some trees and then the gravestones. I've been busy painting the gravestones. At about this point I'll put in a picture of the gravestones being painted. And I've got my plan, which I think I showed in the last video, but again I'll pop up a picture here, which I think broadly most of the gravestones can be put on an east-west alignment, so that's okay, but there will be ones, particularly around the walls and the outer areas where the poorer people were put, where they may be facing, well, not quite north-south, but certainly not east-west. The only other thing I want to show just here very quickly is some purchases from Model Rail Scotland, which I was at last weekend, which I can now, a bit like Divine Light, which are absolutely perfect. First, a parish notice board, which is a Langley Models, it's about £6 I think, painted, which I wouldn't have wanted to do myself. I'm really pleased with that. And this, which you see in many churches, a figure of Christ on the cross as an entry point to the church, but I think they set that off really rather well. And I think you get another good look at the PD walls. I keep going on about PDs, but they're doing quite well without any help from me. As the entrance to the church, and this is a view of the church that you've not seen before. I know how I want to put the trees. I'm not going to tell you in case it doesn't work, but of course whatever I tell you next will be precisely what I intended. And so I'll come back for the final part of this video once I've done the trees. Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that part of the video. As you see, at the end I said I was going to be doing my trees, and the trees required of me to do some spray painting. Now I was going to be using acrylics. Shortly after I recorded that, I watched a video from Mumbles 274, and if I can ever work out how to put links onto the screen, I'll put a link on now. If not, the link will be down below. Talking of his experience, now he was using acrylics and he was using a spray gun, of the consequence of not having an appropriate mask for doing spray painting. I don't have a spray booth. I work entirely in this room, and we're going to be using acrylics and not enamel paints. I don't have a spray gun, but it did make me realise that I needed to acquire the right equipment to protect my face, in particular. And so I now have a respirator, and my dear wife took a picture of me. I'll see if I can get a copy of it, wearing the respirator. But whilst I was waiting for that to come, it meant that I didn't get on with the trees. I don't want to hold up this video anymore. However, what that meant was that I turned my mind to building the vicarage. And I had an idea of what I wanted the vicarage to look like from a photograph, but nothing much else. So I've already now recorded 2 videos, actually, because it takes that long, to show you how I go about scratch building. And that's in part because a number of people have commented on my videos, either in the comments or when I put them on various Facebook pages, about scratch building and being a bit nervous of it. I'd never scratch built anything until I started doing model railways. But there comes a point pretty quickly where what you want is simply not there as a ready-to-run item. And what's more, if it is as a ready-to-run item, everybody else has got it too. Metcalf kits are brilliant, and as you know, I've got loads of them on here. But everybody's got them, and one does like a bit of individuality. And I like the fact that my viaduct and my bridge over there are scratch built, that my tunnel portals now are scratch built, that Greyhaven Station, nobody else, unless you want to copy what I do, of course, which you're very welcome to do, will have the same sort of thing. And I wanted the same for the vicarage. Now, as it turned out, this has turned into 2 videos, and what I'll probably do is in about a week's time release the first, and then a few days after that release the second. So you can see the kind of creative process as I go from essentially a photograph of what I might like to the final fully built vicarage, which is on the layout now. It's just over my shoulder there, but out of sight. So if you want to see what it looks like, you've got to wait till the end of the second video. So you're going to have to wait a little while. Thanks very much for watching. I'm going to put some trains at the end of this so you get some trains running. In fact, what I'm going to do, it's a trailer that I created for the YouTube channel, which only new people going to the channel get to see. And rather than just release it on the channel, I'm going to stick it on the end here. And it also gives me the opportunity to have the music that accompanies, that I use as the intro. So you get to hear the whole of that. So thanks very much for watching. Please like if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed before. Very pleased to have you along. And I look forward to talking to you when we start the journey of building the vicarage for St Eldar of Elvenhome. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.